Siona God. Hello all, Ocean afternoon. Good afternoon, Wado. Thank you for watching. This is day 27 of Transformation of America, the true life story of a CIA mind control slave by Kathy O'Brien with Mark Phillips. And we're going to get through chapter 7 as quickly as possible and as little time as possible. I guess that's redundant. But anyway, Charm School was reportedly operated by an identified member of the Mellon, M-E-L-L-O-N, banking family, Bird's Endowment for the Arts' largest contributor. The operator took the name and role of governor from the movie My Fair Lady in an attempt to confuse my torturous reality with movie fantasy. In the movie, governor is the Cockney title given the professor who transformed a female street urchin into a functioning high society lady. Additionally, Mellon's use of the title governor was intended to create scramble for the real governor who frequented the school as though it were only a whorehouse. I am referring to the governor of Pennsylvania and later U.S. Attorney General, now Secretary for the United Nations, Dick Thornburgh, Thornburgh. Aquino provided some of the programming at Charm School, and everyone I knew in government operations was at least aware of it. Then Youngstown Sheriff, now U.S. Representative Jim Traficant, Traficant, was usually present. He capitalized on his ability to portray himself as Lurch, L-U-R-C-H, by slowly opening the door and saying, "Walk this way," to a literal slave in training. This means walk like he is walking. The Lurch, Igor, a street whore, scarecrow, and so on. Once the door closed behind me, Charm School meant I would be charmed, mesmerized, hypnotized, and programmed to be a high-class prostitute for select politicians. I did learn their way to walk. I learned when to talk, how to dress, how to sit and stand, and all the rest. Table manners were not taught, as they were not needed since slaves endured food and water deprivation when working. Above all, we were taught how to gratify any sexual perversion. Just as Traficant opened the door to Charm School for the slaves, he oftentimes was the one to test their newly learned sexual skills to determine when or if slaves could leave. A typical 3-day course at Charm School included the usual factors of sleep, food, and water deprivation, trauma, high voltage, and programming. Oftentimes experimental or tried and proven CIA manufactured designer drugs were administered, which produced specific brain wave activity to maximize and or compartmentalize programs. I usually spent the first day hanging in the dungeon. Charm School is housed in an identified Stone Historical Railroad baron's former residence, and the basement was in fact a wine cellar dungeon. It was dark, damp, and musty, and was decorated in classic torture chamber fashion. It was complete with various hanging chains and a stretching rack, whips, and altars, including one specially designed for bestiality sex. Okay. As I hung by my wrist, I could hear and smell the animals in the next cell. A black Nubian goat called Satan, a small donkey named Nestor, sometimes a small white pony referred to as Trigger, and various dogs, cats, snakes, and others. All Charm School animals were trained to sexually respond to the smell of urine. Okay. When someone such as Dick Thornburgh, who particularly enjoyed this kind of kink, entered my cell and urinated on me, I knew I would soon be released from my chains and led to the animal altar for bestiality lessons, pornography, or to please a perverse onlooker. I was hung by my ankles, stretched on a rack, burned and tortured repeatedly. My feet and hands were chained to a wall for what was termed off-the-wall sex. I was taught silence in Oz fashion, since streaming did not produce results anyway. This is bugging me. Okay. Unless they wanted it for pornography, this was implemented with an electronic canine bark collar, normally used to train a dog not to bark. I was repeatedly filmed pornographically, and always taken upstairs to the master's chambers for prostitution to participants, including the real governor of Charm School, then Pennsylvania Governor Dick Thornburgh, Congressman Jim Traficant, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, and others. When Kelly was with me, she endured the same, and we were forced to see each other physically tortured as further psychological trauma. This was to ensure I could never remember the who, what, when, where of our bizarre enslavement. This is what is sometimes referred to as cross-programming. In spite of the deliberately created amnesic blocks, I developed a subconscious sympathetic understanding for the other Charm School slaves that extended outside the walls of this man-made hell. This understanding emanated from the depths of my being, creating a compassion for other mind control victims that compels me to give voice to their silent pleas for help to this day. I became close friends with one such victim who must remain anonymous in order to survive, to eventually recover. This beautiful blonde and I had numerous opportunities to be together throughout the years, as Houston's government-sponsored travels routinely took him into her home state of Pennsylvania while Dick Thornburgh was governor. My friend and I were photographed together for Larry Flint's commercial pornography publications and featured in enlisted films that contributed to funding CIA covert operations. In addition to this, she and I were able to spend 2 weeks together when her husband/handler traveled to Houston's farm in Tennessee for instructions on handling his new bride. I was maid of honor for my friend's wedding, which was no more a marriage than mine to Houston. As was customary with Project Monarch slaves, her marriage to her handler equated to marriage to her mind control owner, U.S. Senator Arlen Specter, Spector, Arlen, Arelen. Good God. The wedding I was forced to participate in was for pornography purposes only, and it took place in Arlen Specter's Canute Lake House in Pennsylvania. Specter's stone house was located in wooded, remote setting and was masculine in decor. Side rooms were either designated for perverse sex or were furnished with antiquated NASA virtual reality and programming equipment. The musty smell of Specter's playhouse was overpowered by the scent of roses, which he symbolically presented to his slave on their wedding day. Whew. My friend's wedding photos included Catholic themes, and the crucifix featured was rose-cut crystal, similar to the one I received from Bird. Regardless of how this girl was depicted, her innate morality was apparent to me. She and I were referred to as meerkats. Due to the similarity of our victimizations, like me, she was controlled through manipulation of her religious beliefs and maternal instincts. The delicate rose tattooed on her left wrist, signifying her role in the government operations, did not detract from her high-class projection any more than Specter's immorality could mar her innate goodness. Once Arlen Specter officially became the slave's owner, her charm school status rose to presidential model. In addition to charm school, I endured extensive programming to prepare me for the future operations. Houston was often booked into Oklahoma fairs, Masonic lodges, FOP conventions, and so on, in order that I be back in the vicinity of Tinker Air Force Base for further programming. My Tinkerbell conditioning further enhanced my photographic memory through direct control for receiving and delivering government messages, which amounted to a computerized compartmentalization of my brain, so to speak. I was also trained in covert criminal operations such as international drug milk transactions for funding the Pentagon's and CIA's Black Ops budgets. Houston CIA orchestrated travels in the country music industry led me to a top-secret military NASA installation at Offutt, OFFIT Air Force Base in Nebraska. The you can run but you can't hide condition was deeply ingrained in my mind there through a technique that was later used on Kelly, as was on other mind-controlled slaves. I was taken underground to a so-called secret circular room where the walls were covered with numerous screens showing satellite pictures from around the world. These satellites are referred to as the eye in the sky. An Air Force official explained to me that my every move could be monitored by a satellite. On a separate 4-screen viewer, he demonstrated what in retrospect was a contrived pre-recorded slideshow with the scenes changing as rapidly as he spoke and typed in the computer. "Where will you run?" he asked me. "To the Arctic, to the Antarctic, Brazil, the mountains, the desert, the prairies, the hills of Afghanistan, the city of Kabul, Devil's Tower, which is in Wyoming. Would you try to run to Cuba and live among our enemies? We can find you there. There is truly no place to run and no place to hide. The U.S. Senate," the picture was of Bird, the White House, or to your own backyard. My father was depicted waving from his front door, cupping his hands over his mouth, saying, "Come back," just like Aunt Em in The Wizard of Oz. The moon, we got you covered. You can run, but you can't hide. This had been sufficient to convince me in my suggestible state that my every move could be monitored. During the course of training, conditioning, I was routinely prostituted to Senator Bird in Washington, D.C., at the West Virginia State Fair, NASA in Huntsville, Alabama, and at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. One such night, when I was to be prostituted to Bird at the Opryland Hotel, was scheduled to join him in perversely assaulting me. Much to my horror, Quino arrived early in full army dress uniform backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. When I saw Quino talking with the Vatican-based Project Monarch slave runner, Chris Christopherson, whom I had known since 1979. My personality programmed for Opry spy events short-circuited. Under circumstances such as this, a multiple without programming would have switched personalities autogenically, whereas I could only switch upon command. I backed away, dazed, right into a soft drink machine. Christopherson saw me as I backed further between the wall and the machine. Till tomorrow, dun to go hang, till we meet again, love you, mean it.